Hello, everyone. How are you? Thank you so much for joining us and having interest in the AAAM and the African American Civil Rights Network collaboration and partnership that we have with the National Park Service. We have some amazing information to share with you. Number one, as you all know, it was announced at the conference in Miami that we have gone into an amazing partnership with the National Park Service's African American Civil Rights Network, in which we will be re-granting funds for them. So what we'll be doing today is going through all of the information that you'll need in order to be successful and ready to start applying for the funds. There are several steps that we need for you to do prior to being eligible, or to make you eligible for the funds. So without further ado, let's get this show on the road. Camille, can you, next slide, please? Thank you so much. For those of you who are new to the Association of African American Museums, we are a nonprofit member organization established to support African and African American focused museums, nationally and internationally, as well as the professionals who protect, preserve, and interpret African American art, history, and culture. Something else that I usually throw in there, because people are like, well, what's a museum? For me, and for the field, really, for our whole association, as long as you're a cultural institution of some sort, we take you, we love you, we want you, you are valued and needed in this organization and in the world. Camille, next slide, please. So I just want to introduce you to our team. The three of us have really been working diligently with the National Park Service's African American Civil Rights Network for the past year. Well, maybe not a year, but it feels like it. So my name is Vidette Coleman Robinson, and I'm the Executive Director of AAAM. And then we have Marche Williams, who is our Development Coordinator, and Camille Vincent, who is our HBCU Special Projects Fellow, and she is currently at Howard University, for any bison who are out there. Thank you. Camille, next slide. Just some housekeeping items. If you have questions, you could drop them in the chat, your name and institution, but also, more importantly, please keep your phones on mute. If you have any questions, please also drop them into the chat, but we'll make sure to grab them for you. And then any questions that aren't answered, you can always email us at info@Black Museums, and we will go ahead and start answering your questions there as well. Next slide, Camille. So African American Civil Rights Network, which I have said 5,000 times by now, so all of you know it, but what you may not know is the acronym, which is ACORN. So yes, it sounds like an acorn that falls out of a tree, but it is not. The African American Civil Rights Network was gifted, what I call gifted, but it was not a gift. It was in the legislation from Congress for the National Park Service to help identify African American civil rights sites throughout the country. And when it was first released and established, there was no funding behind it. It was just an entity of the National Park Service where Congress wanted the Park Service to find these sites that had historic significance within the whole country, and help them to identify what is African American civil rights. Dr. Trachaya Lowe, who is the chief historian at the National Park Service, when she first received this project, the first thing that I asked her was, please, please, please make sure that civil rights does not start in the 19th century. And she said, I cannot be the chief historian of the National Park Service and it just starts in the 19th century or the 20th century. We will take it all the way back to when African Americans first landed, and well, I shouldn't say landed, but I'm saying that because of African Landing Day down there at Fort Monroe. But when African Americans Africans were first brought over to the United States, we are starting all the way there. So any site that has significance to African American civil rights, is needed and valued in this network. Camille, next slide. So how do you get on the network? It is imperative that if you have anything, if you're a museum, if you're a cultural institution, if your historic home has a significant value in African American civil rights, you want to make sure that you are on this network. There is an application on the National Park Service's website, and we will share that with you as well. You fill it out, you submit it. It's a very simple application. I do know that sometimes when you're dealing with federal applications, things can seem a little arduous and confusing, but this application is not one of them. You can literally fill it out probably within 15 minutes. As long as you have the property information and things of that nature, your location, things of that nature, just put it into this application and send it off to the National Park Service, and they will review it. And the thing that I love about the network is it doesn't put you on the National Register of Historic Places, but it does help you get ready if that's something that you want to do. You can also do great things like apply. Now, it's not a requirement, and you also are not guaranteed those funds, but the National Park Service, as many of you know, does have their African American Civil Rights Grants that are on the State and Local Tribes Plannings and Grants Division, and you can also apply for that so that you can do some nominations. And we'll speak about that at another time, because we want to focus on this network, and we do not want to confuse you, because when we start throwing acronyms and start talking about Park Service and being under one umbrella, it does get a little confusing, but that's what we're here for, to help you get through the weeds. Camille, next slide. Just some dates to remember. The application that Camille just showed us, that was just a screenshot. But when you go to the National Park Service's website and apply to be on the network, the deadline is rolling, but it's imperative that if you want to be considered for the grants that we're doing with the African American Civil Rights Network, that you have your application in by December 15th. It is absolutely imperative that you do that. Like I said, the application process is really quick. And then the review period closing date within the National Park Service is in February, and then they will let everyone know if you've been accepted to the network, but then they'll also let you, if you have questions about if you weren't selected for the network, you can have that conversation with the National Park Service, and then they will tell you how you can make your application a little stronger so that you can be on the network. And some of it is, things like you need to really identify the significance of your site. And then the website's below, https go.nps.gov/ACORN. Next slide, Camille. And then this is the funding award information that we're going to be able to very soon release to you. So the first step is to get on the network. That once you are on the network, you are then eligible for these grants. Like I said, it's imperative that if you are interested in applying for these grants with AAAM, that you have to be on that network. If you are not on the network, your application automatically for this funding automatically gets declined, and we have to inform you that you're ineligible. And we don't necessarily want to do that. So please please, please, please apply for the network first. And then as soon as you're eligible, you can come over here and we open up our NOFO. So that's the Notice of Funding Opportunity on January 15th. It closes March 15th. And then we in office will review all of the applications, and then we start making determinations and awarding in June. And then all of the funding has to be dispersed to the grantees by July. So we have a very short window, but your first order of business is to get on the network. And then after that, you can move over to applying for the grant. Now, you'll see that the NOFO opens on January 15th. And some of you may be saying, well, ACORN won't tell us if we're on, if we're in the network, if we've made it to the network until February. Well, some folks are already on the network. And if they're already on the network, they can start their application on January 15th. But that's why we also put in a big buffer for individuals for the whole application process to close on March 15th, because we kept in mind that ACORN, the National Park Service, you wouldn't know if you're on the network until February. So then we moved the closing date for applications in March. So everything was very strategic. There were several conversations that Marche, Camille, and I were having to make sure that we were meeting the needs of for anybody who was interested. We will be awarding $1.6 million. And then also the maximum award, so the award ceiling is $25,000 and the minimum award is $5,000. Very important, we are not doing construction grants. The grants that we're doing for this project, if you wanted to do some, AR, VR, so, virtual reality, that's something that you can do. If you want to do an exhibit, you could do some things like that. I will move on to the next slide, but before we close here, I'll have Marche kind of speak about some of the things that are eligible costs for this grant. So as soon as we open up the grant portal January 15th, as soon as it's open, you can go to our website, blackmuseums.org/AAAM-grants. You'll go there, and then again, our portal is very simple for you to apply. And the reason we did that is because we know that applying for funding sometimes, again, is very arduous. We wanted to reduce the burden of any applicant to be able to go in, quickly submit your application, and have us ready to review. Camille, next slide. And this is our portal. So as soon as you click on that link, you'll go onto the landing page, and then you'll see this this portal, and you absolutely have to sign up. And then this part will take you through some prompts. Once you sign up, it'll take you through some prompts to see if you're eligible. The main eligibility requirement is what? For you to be on the African American Civil Rights Network. That is the #1 requirement. That is the #1 eligibility requirement. So if you click on no, I'm not, then we can't assist. Something else that you're going to want to do, and that's part of the application process. We don't have a screenshot of it, but when you're going through the application process, there is a form that you need to fill out, which allows you, it's an owner consent form, and it's giving the National Park Service approval for you to be on the network. So that's just part of it. Camille, next slide. And then once you are eligible, once you hit the little dot that says yes, I think it's a radio button. Once you hit that, it'll go ahead and tell you, you say, I'm on the network. Yes, I am. Click, click, click. It brings you over to the application, the AAAM ACORN application. And then once you click on the little red wording, then it takes you into the portal. We don't have a screenshot of that. It is up and running, but it's just not open for you yet. So, but as soon as you click on those words, it takes you into the portal, and then you're off to the races, and you'll be able to apply for up to 25,000 and then as low as 5,000. Camille, next slide. Oh, and probably one of the most fascinating things about this grant program is that it has allowed us to hire some folks to help support this grant. So we're hiring a grant manager, a technical support analyst, and then also a bookkeeping analyst. We already have our program manager, and that is Camille. So folks will be, reporting to Camille and having all types of conversations with Camille about what is happening on the ground with the applications. So we're really excited about that. And prior to Camille being here, she also worked for the National Park Service and Cultural Resources. So she's very familiar with the jargon and what the needs are of the National Park Service. So it just really, really makes everything a lot easier on our end. And especially if there are any folks who are applying and they're like, oh, I don't really know Park Service that well. It's not for you to know. Camille knows it all. It's like, what was that show? Clarissa Knows It All or Explains It All or something like that. That's Camille. Camille is our know-it-all and explains it all. So feel free to bombard her with the application. So what's happening now when you hit on, when you go into the website to apply, blackmuseums.org/apply/. Once you do that, Camille is going through the applications, and she will be scheduling interviews and all of that, and we'll update you guys with a timeline for when folks will be hired and things of that nature. But obviously, with us having this NOFO opening as soon as January 15th, we will be hiring very soon as well. It's just some of the positions that we needed to hire for. We didn't feel like we should until the grants are here, because then you would just be sitting and not doing anything. And we're not really about idle time over here, because then people start feeling, oh, I want to do more. And then, we have to wait. So it's the deadline to apply for the positions is also January 15th. And Camille, next slide. I think we are kind of towards the end. Yes. So we're on the questions slide, but before we open it to the floor, we're just going to go ahead and Marche, if you can run down, Camille, if you can go back to the slide about applying for the grants. And Marche, if you can run down the eligibility, this one, thank you so much. If you can run down the eligibility requirements, or what folks can apply, let's do that. What folks can apply for, what is eligible, what's an eligible cost?
Okay, a few things. With regard to eligible costs, that would include survey, planning, collections, conservation, and documentation of historic sites as well as events. In addition to that, the creation of interpretive and educational materials around significant sites. And you'll be happy to know this includes oral histories. Yes. And something more that I really want to emphasize with regard to evaluating the application We encourage you to place emphasis on innovative strategies, creative projects with measurable results, and you'll want to also include cross-generational engagement that promotes and preserves the community's history. So that's something. And then lastly, there are 7 categories. And sometimes, and it stands to reason that projects may overlap categories. So in instances like that, you'll want to choose the dominant category. But you have survey and planning, research and documentation, interpretation and education, collection conservation, alternative reality and virtual reality, digitization, and GIS mapping. Those are the 7 categories. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no, thank you, Marche. And I can tell you guys that, you know, as we were building out what was an eligible cost, what were some projects that would be phenomenal for individuals who wanted to apply for this funding, we really took a look at what was going on in the field, and really looked at what were the needs and what were people, you know, what were members of the network, but then also AAAM members, what were people saying, what were organizations saying that they absolutely needed. And, you know, it's a way to kind of bridge the gap between what the federal government offers as far as funding is concerned, and what some foundations offer or don't offer. And we just said, we're just going to meet everybody in the middle, because there's just some things that we can't do. Like, we are not, I cannot stress this enough, we are not a program that's going to help you preserve your historic home or your museum through construction. This is a non-construction grant. We're not doing any construction, anything, for those of you who are familiar with it, nothing that's going to flag the Secretary of Interior standards as it pertains to preservation. We're not doing that. So we're doing all of the stuff that's in the gray bubble to help you build your brand. If you needed to, like Marche said, GIS mapping, I think that that's phenomenal. You'll be able to have markers throughout, you know, historic markers and things of that nature. If you wanted to, this could be part of a project, because I understand that it's a little bit expensive to do, but if you wanted to use drone technology to find out if there, if around your site there's like an African burial ground, you would be able to use some of the funding from this project for that. But of course, you would have to show that you have the matching funding already, or maybe this grant can help you out with the planning. Something else that you can use this money for would be if you wanted to do something and make historic places, you can use that funding. You can use this funding for that. We cannot help you again with the preservation of your National Register anything, but we can definitely help you. These funds can be used for that. Exhibit space, Marche said something about oral histories. That's absolutely needed, especially as so many people are, you know, getting called home and leaving us, you know, that their knowledge, their struggle, their stories are being lost. So, you know, having those oral histories are really, really important. Something that I think would be really cool, a project that would be really cool that wouldn't flag 106 is, you know, if you have a cemetery and you want to make sure, an African American cemetery, and you want to check to see if there are any civil rights activists in there, in the cemetery, you'll be able to use that funding to hire a consultant to at least survey the grounds to see who's there. Not necessarily any preservation of the headstones or anything like that, but just survey to see who's there. You can hire a consultant for that. Marche and I are really into, you know, if you're doing an exhibit of some sort, making sure that you're analyzing the data so that you'll be able to tell funders exactly what happened in your space. These are all things that you can use this funding for. And then obviously, if you have any questions, and Camille, we can go all the way to the end. If you have any questions about eligibility, feel free to email us at info@Black and we will absolutely help you. It's been a time. Thank you all so much. Again, if you have questions, info@Black If you have questions about applying for the network, please email us. If you have questions about applying for any of the positions, feel free to email us. And absolutely, as soon as that NOFO opens and the portal opens for you to go ahead and apply for grants, email us as well. Just, you know, keep us on speed dial. We love it. Well, on email dial. Email dial is a better one. Email dial is a better one, as the AAAM office is fully remote, and we are across several time zones. Email is the best way. But thank you all so much. If you, again, questions, comments, anything, shoot us an email. Thank you so much for joining us. Camille and Marche, thank you for your time. And I'll speak to you guys later. Bye. Looking forward to seeing all those applications going in. I want to have a phone call with the folks at the Park Service, and they say, oh my gosh, we have this crazy influx of people trying to get on the network. And I'm going to say, yeah, those are my peoples. Those are my peeps. Thank you all. Talk to you later. Bye.